Good morning. Live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas from the Mandalay Bay. Along with Kayla Bradham, I'm Roy Kessel with Sports Philanthropy Network, and today we're very excited to have with us two special guests. We have former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue and Chris Marvin with Bet the Vote. So, Paul, Chris, thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to talk about this important issue. Paul, we know you've been a long-time supporter of ours and participated in sports philanthropy world a few times. So thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be with you. It's always important, maybe increasingly so.
Well, I know that this has been a big initiative, and we want to hear more about, you've got a lot of opportunities. Everybody comes to you to be involved in different causes. What made you pick this concept of Vet the Vote and working with veterans in the NFL to tackle the election volunteer crisis?
Well, I guess the first starting point is I think that I and my family and friends, colleagues have tremendous respect for the men and women in our military. They put themselves at risk in ways that no other citizen does, but more important than that, they fight for causes that we all need to be fighting for, especially in this day and age, which is democracy and the right to vote in a free society, and not to inadvertently collapse into some type of unfettered autocracy. So this is an important election coming up. But secondly, I think this veterans program takes us beyond the point where people talk a good game, but they never produce. So this gets beyond talk. It gets to action, and it gets to not just proposed actions, but to achieving those goals. So I think what veterans did in 2022 and registering 65,000 veterans and their families to support this poll watching initiative, that was critical. When they first spoke to me and Troy Vincent, I said to Troy, it's like a football game. You can talk a good game, but unless you can get 2 or 3 touchdowns, you're not going to win. Well, these folks got 6 or 7 touchdowns in the first 8 or 9 month season, and now we're moving into the next season. I think they're going to get up to 120,000 or more.
Well, we know Troy is a former Badger. We're partial to his success and what a great job he's done at the NFL. Chris, I want to jump over to you, and Kayla and I do work with a lot of different organizations around the country that are involved with veterans and with the military. So we'd like to hear your passion and how you got behind the Vet the Vote project.
Vet the Vote is, an organization that I think is doing some amazing work. I'm really pleased to be working with them. We're taking people who have served this country, who we know that a lot of Americans trust and that have put themselves on the line, obviously, for the country. And I'm an Army veteran myself, went to Afghanistan. But we're giving them a new mission here at home to help make sure that our elections run smoothly by recruiting veterans to be poll workers and to, have them serve again in that capacity. And the fact that Commissioner Tagliabue is willing to connect Vet the Vote with the NFL and make us part of the work that the NFL does around a lot of the charities they work with. Both their Salute to Service campaign obviously is a fantastic campaign, but also the NFL Votes campaign, which is actually what we're more tied into. And to have a chance to be here at Super Bowl during the media week and talking about the work that we're doing with an upcoming election, as the commissioner mentioned, a very important election for everybody this fall. The only way that important election comes to fruition is if we have people running the polls that we know and trust can make sure that we keep our elections free and fair.
I think it's a complicated mission for lots of reasons. It's not just persuading people to...
So let's talk a little bit about Vet the Vote. Roy?
Go ahead, Paul. I know there's a bit of a lag on a couple of the things.
Yeah, I was saying that I think that the mission of Vet the Vote is complicated. It's complicated enough to get people to stand up and say, I'll participate, but then you have to train them, educate them, deploy them, and figure out, how's that going to work? And I'm sure people are saying, well, do I get a veteran who's in my voting district? Do I get a veteran who's in my state? Or what if I get someone who's a red state and I'm in a blue state? So I think you can see a lot of complexities here. But the overarching point for me is that every indication that we have, think tank studies and other studies, including some court cases, show us that the election in 2020 was a fair election. And so we're trying to make sure we continue with that kind of a track record. We're not remedying a problem as much as we're trying to continue something that has worked. But it's challenged because of retirements, because of the pandemic, because people move out of districts where they served as poll watchers and don't get immediately attuned to the new district where they're living. So I think this is not just important, but complicated, and we have great confidence the way it was carried out 2 years ago. It's going to repeat that in 2024.
Yeah, I think that the challenge with the elections, right? You have so many different perspectives, and it seems like people go in with a preconceived notion and then kind of look at the data or the information and sort of cherry pick what presents their own perspective. Chris, as you've been working on this, what have you seen as one of the most challenging aspects of this component?
Yeah, I think that one of the challenging aspects is that different people have different views of the role that elections play in our society and in the political process. And so by putting veterans in place at polling places, I think we're instilling a little bit more trust in that process. Veterans are not there. One of the questions we get often is, are veterans there for security reasons? Which can be a concern at polling places, but that's not the purpose of Vet the Vote. It's actually just to have people, taking IDs and handing out pens and making sure that this process goes well. And if you look at a lot of the conversations out there, it is about the process, right? It is about, counting votes, looking at ballots. And so, we kind of, as veterans, come in as humble servants, right? Which is maybe what we did in uniform as well. We served our country in that way, and we're happy to be humble servants now to our community, our neighborhoods, because those are sort of where the polling places are. And I think that, the fact that the NFL has partnered with Vet the Vote helps us get the word out there, and maybe inspires not only veterans to sign up to be poll workers, but anybody to sign up to be a poll worker. Because it really is all of our obligation to make sure that we have elections that allow us to continue to have a vibrant and thriving democracy.
Kayla?
I can attest to that, because after she heard about this program,
I think there's too much lag on my end. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Roy. But I would say this, Chris, one of the things that I'd really like to just hammer in for anybody watching this, right? Whether they're college students, whether they're single moms living in Milwaukee, whatever it is, how can they get involved? How can we make a difference when it comes to vetting the vote? Even if we're not veterans, how do we support it?
So the first thing you can do if you're interested in Vet the Vote is go to vetthee.vote. That's vetthee.vote. And right there's a chance to sign up to be a poll worker. You don't have to be a veteran or a military family member to do it. We are targeting that population because we know them and trust them, and we know that they're more likely to be willing to serve. But we would encourage anybody who cares about elections, who cares about the country, who cares about preserving our democracy, to sign up. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have poll workers, we don't have elections. If we don't have elections, we don't have democracy. And so it's a really, really crucial part of everything we do here in the United States, and even our ability to enjoy the big game on Sunday. I mean, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of moving parts, but an organization like the NFL exists uniquely in a country like the United States because of the type of society that we've set up, and we want to preserve our right to watch the game, preserve our right to vote, preserve our right, to serve our country like so many veterans have. But anybody can do this, and we're hoping that message spreads as well. So
Paul, as you look ahead to the upcoming elections, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that you have from Vet the Vote in terms of amplifying the work that you're doing?
Well, I think one of the obstacles is that, as with so many things, we act on the basis of foregone conclusions. We reach opinions without looking at the data sometimes, and it's complicated now. Misinformation has always been a challenge, but it seems that with social media and technologies that people sometimes think they're managing but not managing very well, we inadvertently hear things that are presented as factual when they're not factual, and there's no way to go back and take all the feathers and put them back into the pillow once the misinformation is out there. So, and I think artificial intelligence may present additional complications that we didn't even have as recently as 2022. So I think that's part of it. But I think the underlying point is people seem to be, especially young people, what we hear is that they're not interested. Well, I don't find that. I have two granddaughters and a grandson. They're young people between ages 16 and 23. They're interested. They just want to hear some substantive conversation. They want to have information that they think is reliable. They want people to be addressing their issues. And okay, what are their issues? Their issues include school shootings, which no one seems to want to do much about. The other subjects, that young people, climate is another one. They don't think that the world, including our government at state and federal levels, is dealing adequately with their issues. So that has to be someone else's mission. But the people who are dealing with the substance need to collaborate with those who are dealing with the process. And that's why I think Vet the Vote is so important, because it's intended to make it known to young, middle-aged, and old people. Voting is important, and it's being made easier and easier with access to facilities like stadiums and arenas and other measures that are being taken to ensure access and reliability.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. Chris, thank you for sharing the information on Vet the Vote. Important details. Encourage everybody to go look at that website and get involved and participate. So on behalf of Kayla Bradham, I'm Roy Kessel with Sports Philanthropy Network. We want to thank our viewers and listeners for joining us today, and we'll remind everybody to live generously. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.